Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lounge. We are in the month of December and, well, this is the holiday season. And so, kind of what I almost had planned out for Halloween, I'm this time going to do for the holidays here. Of course, this won't be until the end of the month because really Christmas isn't until like December 25th. So, there's at least going to be 3 videos spread across these 3 weeks. So from this today to next Monday, and of course then a special Christmas Day, basically a special Christmas video, I will be talking about at least 2 pretty cool Christmas related comic book stories. But for today's video, now the 2 comics that I picked for this episode are still tied to being Christmas, but they're not necessarily Christmas stories, but they do take place obviously during the holidays. And the first one I'm going to show is a 4-part storyline that took place within this character's own series. What I'm referring to is Deathstroke the Terminator issues, 6 through 9, which make up the entire City of Assassins storyline. So, the whole gist for this particular story was that, well, Deathstroke, of course, is being, first, he's being brought into Gotham City as an interest for one of the Gotham mobsters to take out basically a rat or a squealer or whatever, as I used to say, someone who was going to flab to the FBI and tell everything what has happened. And this is a former mob hitman, but he's going to cooperate with the FBI, but they want somebody to hire to kill him. And so they obviously heard about Deathstroke the Terminator, and so they figured they'd go to him. Well, Deathstroke, at this point, this is post-Titans Hunt, so this is post-Death of Jericho, and so he's in a more of a tortured mind state these days, and he's pretty much trying to wash away his deadly past, so he doesn't want anything to do with the mob. And so they're not happy with that, and they pretty much go with their plan B, which is somebody who, of course, it gets revealed in the very last issue who it was. But this, of course, this whole storyline would introduce Pat Trace, who would become the successor to Adrian Chase, formerly the Vigilante, and this even saw the first meeting between Deathstroke and Batman. But then the whole gist is that then afterwards, Deathstroke sees the name that the person that they were going to hire him for, and so he decides on his own that he gets the feeling that somebody wants him dead, and so he's going to try and figure out who wants him dead, why they want him, and so on. And that whole leads into the interactions with Pat Trace, leads the interactions with Batman, and so on. But this storyline takes place during the month of December, and especially the days, I think might be on the day of Christmas, because in the second part in this issue, which is would be issue number 7 here, as again, the fantastic Mike Zeck cover, obviously with Batman and so on. Well, there is one of the pages towards where he's heading to the building that we're all, I think his boss name is Jarrett, the main guy that obviously was hiring Deathstroke in the first place to kill the FBI witness protection person, the mob hitman, Travis Barker. But as he's riding on his motorcycle, actually, he's got a very cool ride in this book, he sees a couple of muggers who are literally mugging this Santa guy. This guy, the Santa impersonation, the Santa guy. He's basically, they're just mugging him, and he sees that, and so what does he do? Because it's the festive holidays, he decides to shoot and wound the 2 muggers, and then goes on, gives away to the guy dressed up as Santa Claus and says, "Merry Christmas." And then he drives off, and then, of course, you have the guy in Santa who just literally was about to get mugged and maybe killed, beat up, whatever, is just all breath and muzzle top, whatever he tries to say. I think he says something like that, at least the gist of that in the book. But it's just more like another day in Gotham City, basically. But here he just gets saved by one of the most notorious villains within DC Comics. Because again, they're this is definitely during Deathstroke's anti-hero period. But either way, this is obviously one of my favorite stories within Deathstroke, the Terminator's original series. And these first 10 to 13 issues, which were all kind of broken up, whatever, as like stories within these series, like again, start kicking up a full cycle, then into City of Assassins, and then into, of course, the Love sort of storyline, two-part storyline with him and Pat Tracy, and then the stuff with Superman, all of that. This was obviously, you couldn't kick off a series any better than what you could do with this. Any other series have had some good starts, but to me, this was, Marv Wolfman knew how to kick off the first ever solo series for Deathstroke the Terminator, and this was one of the best ones for certain. But it's the holidays and it's perfect. And again, there's that right there, number 8, and then finally ending with number 9. But yeah, this all takes place during the month of December, and this is going to be more of a bonus edition, because it's kind of the storyline wise. I believe this actually does take place in between Full Cycle and Deathstroke the Terminator issues 6 through 9, the City of Assassins. But it does take place during the winter, so this is probably still December time. But it is the Wonder Woman special, which of course is the one of the first real interactions between Deathstroke and Wonder Woman, even though they had them interacting during the Panic in the Sky story. But this is the first where they decided to write an entire comic, and this would lead into basically like kind of a return for the Wonder Woman series with what's a number 66 or something like that. And this was like a 2-part. This one and then the next issue for Wonder Woman basically ends this story that begins in this one shot. But this does take place during the month of December, and I think is kind of the lead into City of Assassins, even though these were kind of being released or published around the same time as these books. But really, the storyline is definitely, I'd say it seems to fit before that. So really, you gotta at least get the 2 Wonder Woman issues and City of Assassins to kind of get even more of a better idea, better sort of fuller story extent of what eventually does happen. So it really does show what they were doing for the Deathstroke character during the early 90s. Yeah, this was definitely the beginning of where the character started getting a lot more bigger than obviously during the 80s, when he was just showing up more often for the most part to the Teen Titans books. But this one, I just had to throw it in there. So the Wonder Woman special with Deathstroke the Terminator. Alright, so finally, the last book I'm going to show does take place on Christmas Day. And this is, of course, and speaking of some great Mike Zeck covers too, it is Daredevil 241. Now, this one was written, this was during Ann Nocenti's period of writing Daredevil. And what really makes this more interesting is that this is some of the earliest Marvel work from Todd McFarlane. So for me being a Spawn fanatic, you know I'm going to have at least some sort of Todd McFarlane. But as a kid, because this is my copy that I had with the Daredevil action figure that came through the Marvel Legends line. I forgot which phase it was, but it's one of the phases when this came on. It's early on too, by the way. So I've had this for a really long time, and it's not in the best condition. Again, it's seen better days. I'm looking for an actual original for this one to begin with to kind of upgrade. But I love this comic, and it may not be the greatest story, but it's a really interesting, and it is fairly bleak too. Because again, Ann Nocenti's been trying to also continue some of that Frank Miller sort of very bleak, almost brooding noir type of feel of some of these books. You know, she's really kind of going for that feel and continue that style. And for this one, the whole story is that there's a guy who's like a I wouldn't say magician, but he's someone who likes to change disguises, whatever. But the reason he's doing this is because he breaks into like a Halloween shop again in freaking December, Christmas Day at least, maybe Christmas Eve. He breaks in, takes these masks, and he's trying to do that as a way to get Daredevil's attention, because he wants attention, and Daredevil doesn't know what this person's doing. He's like walking tight ropes, and it's like given this idea, is he trying to off himself? You know, they use some safe words for YouTube. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to hurt people? What is it? Eventually, towards the end of the story, Daredevil figures out what's going on. It's that the person is obviously, he seems to be done with his life, and he's trying to find one last bit of hope for himself before, I guess, he finally gets his wish, which is eventually is death. And it's a really bleak ending. And again, this is early Todd McFarlane, so this is not quite yet Amazing Spider-Man, nor is it this, Incredible Hulk 340 period of Todd McFarlane. This is still fairly coming off the heels of his DC Comics run. So it's a little more primitive than typical, what we know to come to, at least to expect from Todd McFarlane. But you can kind of see the more leaning. You can still see some of that classic Todd McFarlane trait that's starting to really show through this. And with his sort of the scene that he's able to draw, he really does draw a very, in a way, it gives you the idea, but it's still horrific to know what in the world he's drawing. And that there's a shot towards the end. It's like the guy finally comes hope. He's finally seeing what Daredevil is, and Daredevil's pretty much trying to save the guy, because he straps himself to like one of the, I forgot what part of the scene, but it's, again, there's like a lot of lights and stuff to it, and he's waiting for the thunderstrike, basically. There's going to be a thunderstrike that's going to hit, and he's waiting for that, and eventually Daredevil's just too late, and he gets electrocuted. Literally, he gets electrocuted and fried. And you can kind of see, due to Todd McFarlane's drawing, just the way he's just depicting the overall scene, you can kind of see what should be a burnt corpse. This is a bit of a really insane issue from Ann Nocenti. She's really kind of going in for it for this one. And while there is a message, but at the same time, it's such a ridiculous, very almost horrific sort of story that whatever message she was kind of going for does kind of get lost. But I have to give it to her. This book definitely left an impression on me, and it always still leaves an impression on me. Even when talking about it, it still leaves an impression on me because of what in a wild storyline this was. And this is pretty much taken during Christmas. That's why it's a part of this video. This is a Christmas issue, and it's probably one of the most insane, most sadistic Daredevil Christmas issues I think you'll ever read. And it's got a message of depression and thoughts of, well, things that, of course, YouTube, I guess, find very sensitive. But that's what you're kind of getting with this issue, and it really shows. And, of course, this is kind of during Daredevil's kind of bleak period to begin with. He's no longer a lawyer. He's trying to continue it with Karen Page, but man, like, again, you go from something like 239, where he deals with a complete crazy serial killer who is really misogynistic. And then to go into this issue, he's dealing with literally a kamikaze guy, a guy who's literally begging to end his life. It's like, talk about a 1-2 punch for this guy. So Matt Murdock is literally going through hell and back. And what a wild one. This is before we'd get the even more bigger stuff like 250 and so on, where he is dealing with the Bullet and all the other goons like Typhoid Mary and so on that Kingpin starts to throw back, that leads to even bigger sort of stuff in the early 90s and so on. And this is definitely, we're getting to a lot of the big, some crazy storylines that become very popular still for Daredevil. So, yeah, this was still a strong series to begin with. So, 80s Daredevil till the early 90s is definitely some of the, I would say, still is some of the, still peak Daredevil. So, there you have it. Oh, by the way, Blackheart even too getting introduced. So, all this period. So there you have it. There's all the stories I wanted to show for this episode. Definitely tune back in to next week where I got a couple more books for you to show that are definitely going to at least lift your spirits up. So this was definitely a bit of an interesting one. Daredevil and Deathstroke. So there you have it. If you've read any of these two stories, let me know in the comment section below what you thought of them. But if there's a few stories that you've read that are very interesting, sort of Christmas or at least winter themed superhero stories, or it doesn't even have to be superhero, it can be any sort of comic story that may involve some superheroes but still may be on the dark side, let me know. I'd be very curious. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed. If you like what you see with this channel and you want to continue on, not only is it going to do me great, but it will do you great because you'll never miss out on any new content when you press that subscribe button. Please do so. It'll help me out as well. So thank you, everybody. Until then, I'll see you all later. Take care.